Well, good morning and welcome to our Bible study from the fabulous book of Isaiah. We're going to look at chapter 40 today, and some of my colleagues will look in more detail at parts of this chapter in the next couple of sessions. But without further ado, Isaiah chapter 40. Comfort, comfort my people, says your God. Speak to Jerusalem's heart, proclaim to it that its tour of duty is fulfilled, that its waywardness is paid for, that it has received from Yahweh's hand double for all its offences. A voice is proclaiming, in the wilderness clear Yahweh's way, make straight in the step your highway for our God. Every valley is to rise up, every mountain and hill is to sink, the ridges to become level, the cliffs a veil. Yahweh's splendour will appear and all flesh will see it together, because Yahweh's mouth has spoken. A voice is saying, proclaim. But someone says, proclaim what? All flesh is grass, and all its commitment is like a wildflower's. Grass withers, a flower fades when Yahweh's wind blows on it. Yes, the people are grass. Grass withers, a flower fades. But our God's word stands forever. Get yourself up onto a high mountain as a bringer of news to Zion. Raise your voice with power as a bringer of news to Jerusalem. Raise it. Don't be afraid. Say to Judah's city, there is your God. There is Lord Yahweh. He comes as the strong one. His arm is going to rule for him. There his reward is with him, his earnings before him. Like a shepherd who pastures his flock, he gathers lambs in his arm. He carries them in his embrace, guides the nursing ones. Who has gauged the waters in his palm, surveyed the heavens with his span, measured earth's dirt by the gallon, weighed the mountains with a balance, the hills with scales? Who has directed Yahweh's spirit, or as the person to give him counsel made it known to him? With whom did he take counsel so that he helped him understand, taught him the way to make decisions, taught him knowledge, made known to him the way of understanding? Their nations count like a drop from a pan, like a cloud on scales. Their foreign shores are like a fine cloud rising. Lebanon, there's not enough to burn its animals. There aren't enough for a burnt offering. All the nations are like nothing over against him. They count as less than naught, emptiness to him. So to whom would you compare God? Or what comparison would you put forward for him? The image which a craft worker casts, a smith beats it out with gold, a smith with silver chains. Is it so fit for tribute? Wood that doesn't rot, that someone chooses? He seeks for himself a clever craft worker so to set up an image so it doesn't wobble. Do you not acknowledge? Do you not listen? Has it not been told you from the beginning? Have you not understood earth's foundations? There's one who sits above earth's horizon, its inhabitants like grasshoppers, one who stretches out the heavens like a net, spreads them like a tent for sitting in, one who makes sovereigns nothing, makes earth's authorities pure emptiness. They're really not planted, really not sown. Their stem is really not rotting in the earth. Then he blows on them and they shrivel, and the whirlwind carries them off like straw. So to whom would you compare me? So I could be similar, says the Holy One. Lift your eyes on high and look. Who created these? The one who brings out their army in full number, summons all of them by name because of the abundance of his power. And as one mighty in strength, not one lags behind. Why do you say, Jacob? Why speak, Israel? My way has hidden from Yahweh. A decision about me passes away from my God. Have you not acknowledged? Have you not listened? Yahweh is God of the ages, creator of earth's ends. He doesn't go faint or weary. There's no fathoming of his understanding. He gives strength to the faint. And to the one who has no resources, he gives much energy. Youths may get faint and weary. Young men may collapse. But people who look for Yahweh get new energy. They grow pinions like eagles. They run and don't get weary. They walk on and don't faint. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Such beautiful words, and I'm sure that many of you, like me, have parts of Handel's Messiah running through your head, especially those first words, comfort. Comfort ye my people, saith your God. Hosea had long ago reported God's words to Israel. You are no longer my people, and I'm no longer your God. What an awful sentence to pronounce. But God also promised through Hosea that the moment would come when what God would again say, my people and your God. Isaiah announces that moment is here. He does so with what we would call a trumpet blast, I guess. Comfort, speak, proclaim, 3 trumpet blasts. The Judahites have paid double for their offences. The Babylonians have been more tough with Judah than was needed, and they get criticised for their heartlessness later in Isaiah. However, the royal pardon has come, the prison gates are open, they're free. This is not cheap comfort, this is all based on truth. The covenant God made at Mount Sinai still stands. It's like the prodigal in a far country. They are reminded that they have a father who loves them and a home to go to. Ezekiel described God's splendour leaving Jerusalem as it falls to Babylon in 587. But God now intends to return to the city, and a highway, a main road, a motorway if you like, is to be carved out to welcome God and his people back. Every valley will be raised or exalted, and every mountain and hill laid low. Another great temptation to sing, but I'll resist it. And everyone, whether believer or not, will see it because God says it will happen. I love the voice of God saying, proclaim, speak. And the prophet responds, but what do I say? What do I say? How can I preach when everything's withered and dried up, the flowers are all gone? Not only do we all know places like that, but we all know times in our lives when all the flowers are gone and we feel withered and dried up. Yes, the people are withered, says God, but look at the difference I make when I decide to do something. When God speaks, it happens. And then we get to a further commission to the prophet. Go and speak from the top of a very high mountain. Shout and don't be afraid. And now we change metaphor to the strong one, followed by the gentle one, a warrior followed by a shepherd. The shepherd arrives with his flock of sheep, and that's a beautiful picture because he carries them in his arms. Even those who were carried off into exile in Babylon are coming back. There are 2 possibilities with these chapters in Isaiah. Either Isaiah is giving a fairly detailed future prophecy, so God's provided him with that about 150 years later, or somewhere in that order, or this is a writer from the school of Isaiah, one of the prophets that followed on from him. We don't know for sure, and there's a dispute between scholars, but in some ways it doesn't matter because we can clearly hear God speaking through these words. The gospel writers describe the highway being built as a way for the Messiah, for Jesus. That doesn't mean that Isaiah's words laid dormant for all those centuries, but rather with Jesus, those words spring up to life again with a deeper and a fuller meaning. For those among you, as if they were transposed into a new, so that for those musicians amongst you, it's as if they were transposed into a new key. A new theme starts at verse 12 as we look at the majesty of God. What a picture, a skilled craftsman constructing a model, infinitely wise, totally sovereign, worthy of more worship than we could ever give him, incomparable and enthroned. Lift your eyes up, says Isaiah, lift your eyes up. How we need to do that, and how easy it is to look down amongst the mess and muddle of today and be downcast. It's not easy to believe when the world is in ruins. We can be too numb to grasp it. Isaiah encourages fresh hope and strength to the weary. There's no rebuke for the Judahites crying out about living in darkness for so long with their capital city destroyed and many of them taken into exile. But now it's time to stop. So now Isaiah says, you know that big empire that did this to you? They aren't that impressive if you compare them to God. God who created the world. Don't even think of comparing God to those man-made gods the Babylonians use. It's embarrassing for them, isn't it, when someone steals your God or your God rots or falls over? Think too of the Babylonian leaders. They're no more impressive than a grasshopper when compared to God. It doesn't mean that God doesn't like human beings. It's that God doesn't have to be impressed by them. And what about the planets and stars that so impressed the Babylonians? Who's in charge of them? It's God, of course, and they obey God's instructions. For instance, in the way that they bring day and night and change to the seasons. God will act to put down the empire and restore Jerusalem and bring the exiles home. If you know who God is and what God is going to do, then it energizes you in the present. God gives strength to the weary. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. Beautiful words again to end our time together. Hold this promise close in the days ahead. My colleagues will look at this chapter in more depth over the next 2 Bible reflections, and then I'll have a look at chapters 41 and 42.